Atomic Dog by the legendary George Clinton. Um, that was the original extended version of Atomic Dog, which I haven't heard since I was a baby. I've been listening to the shortened radio version, but that was Atomic Dog. And I think this is my first time ever playing Atomic Dog on the BroDiallo show. So let me just apologize because I am from Kansas City, Missouri, and that was the song that I've been hearing at literally every house party, hole in the wall, club, around the way spot since I was a child, since I was old enough to comprehend music. So I don't know why I've been so negligent to deny my KCMO roots. But anyway, Atomic Dog. This is Bro Diallo. This is Q4 Radio. Um, Today is March the 22nd in the year of your Lord, 2021. I'm broadcasting through Q4 Radio remotely in the city of Chirac, state of Illinois, in the United States of America, on the late, great, dying, overexploited, underappreciated planet Earth. Um, Today's show is ultimate show is African spirituality versus atheism. And it's not really an appropriate title because, hold on, it's not, no, all right, just had to address some microphone settings. Sorry about that. That's not really an appropriate title because, in actuality, atheism is not in conflict with African spirituality. But, oh, sorry, I'm still adjusting things here. I can't wait till the quarantine is over and things go back to normal because, again, because I'm broadcasting from, uh, hold on, I know y'all hear some things. Hold on. Is that better? For me, it is. I don't know. Anyway, sorry about that. Um, what was I saying? Oh, African spirituality isn't really in conflict with atheism or vice versa, but I'll get into that later. I wanted to address some things before I get into the topic of the show. One of the things I want to address is people complain that they say that I set up the Bro Diallo show and then I give the show a title, but then I don't immediately start talking about the title. So again, I'll give the format of the show. The format of the show is I play some intro music, um, some theme music. I talk about either some trending topic, news of the day. If the day is some significant historical event like an Independence Day for a decolonizing African country or a significant historical event or figure, I give acknowledgments and shout outs. Sometimes I open up for discussion and then I go into the topic. So it's a build up. I have a theater background. Y'all not going to believe this, but I shouldn't be saying this. It's giving too much ammo to my enemies out there, my haters, because I got haters. But I got a varsity letter in theater. Yes, I lettered in theater. I bet many of y'all didn't even know that was possible. All you jocks, alpha males with your varsity letter in football, track and field, basketball. My varsity letter came in theater. So I never bought a Letterman jacket, but if I did have a Letterman jacket, I would have had a letter to put on there. Anyway, so I'm built up. It's a show. It's not just a lecture. It's not just insights and discussion. This is the Bro Diallo radio broadcast. So that's how I structure the show. But I do have some support. Delta Star Marketing. he goes in and breaks down the show, and so if you look at it, if you don't listen to me live or you listen through the Q4 or BroDiallo archives or on YouTube, you can go in and find markers where you can click and go exactly to the topic you're seeking if you just haven't yet to fall into love with the sound of my voice and don't want me to get up to the thing. So I feel like I have to say that because I actually get that complaint. Like people were like, "Well, I listened to the show and it took you 20 minutes to get to the topic." And I'm like, "Yes, maybe it took me 20 minutes, 30 minutes to get to the topic, but wasn't that a good ride? It wasn't the trip, the build up, the anticipation, the foreplay before we hit that topic. Was it not worth it? I don't know. Y'all tell me. If y'all want me to be robotic on Chia, but anyway, and oh, I forgot. That's one complaint. I just trying to get my complaints out of the way. I can't wait till it's safe to go back to Q4 radio because I hate tinkering with buttons and wires. I miss the radio days, man, where I could get up, go to Q4 studio, and the studio doesn't have like the sun burning my eye out my face. If you're looking on video, um, sun burning half my face and the other half face. They got the sound, the foam on the wall. It's more professional, and I don't have to personally be dealing with wires and buttons and little blinking lights. I'm not built for these blinking light stuff. Now I got a varsity letter in theater, but I'm not a nerd. I'm still at Umar Johnson quality alpha male. So this nerd stuff ain't me. So anyway, really looking forward. Shout out to Q4. Can't wait to darken the doorstep of the studio and I can quit this rigged up hobo moonshine home operation I've said, even though I'm appreciative of it. I'm very happy for the software. One of my listeners who wants to remain anonymous donated the microphone, everything. My mother-in-law gave me the Apple laptop because I have a PC laptop that didn't run the software. So this is a communal, cooperative, socialist effort here, but still can't wait to get back to Q4. Now that I'm done complaining about personal stuff, let me complain about some of our collective delusion. If you're on the internet, there's at least one meme I know you saw, and now there's another meme that I see trending. One meme is this beautiful young African woman holding up a sign during one of the anti-police brutality protests that said, pro-black isn't anti-white. And then the Afro-punk movement kind of embraced that the pro-black doesn't mean anti-white or pro-black isn't anti-white. And I'm seeing a lot of liberal, progressive, forward-thinking, positive, inspirational black people proudly assert that their pro-blackness isn't anti-white. And I've been basically bumping heads with this for some times, explaining to black people who want to be the good guys. You want to be the Luke Skywalker of your story. You want to be the good guy. You want to be, let me not say Luke Skywalker. You want to be Luke Cage, or you want to be the Black Panther of your story. So you want to be the good guy. You want to hold the correct positions, and you don't want to fall into the abyss of racial hatred and animus that has been opposed on you. You don't want to become your enemy, or as Lord said, you believe the false, incorrect notion that you can't use the master's tools to tear down the master's house, which is all patently false. It sounds great, and I love good sounding things, but it's not true. Pro-black is innately anti-white. But before, and let me just say this new thing that's coming out, this new meme that I see shared, and this has been adopted because that pro-black isn't anti-white was adopted by white people, and I started seeing democratic, progressive, anti-racist white people start to assert to their white peers to say, hey, you have nothing to fear from pro-black people because pro-black isn't anti-white. And so then I saw another meme, and I saw some white dudes and black dudes coming together in a kumbaya circle for this new statement, which is uh black the conflict is blacks or black people versus racism, not black people versus white people. And I just saw that today. And this morning, early this morning, while I was setting up, and I just saw all these black people, white people, Dr. Martin Luther King's dream come alive on the worldwide internet. Because they were so proud of the fact that they realized that our fight isn't against white people. Our struggle, our beef, our conflict is against racism. And to be pro-black is not to be anti-white. And I apologize to you good black people who were taught that nonsense that you should love everybody, that believe that hatred is bad or hatred is and forgiveness is the highest virtue. And I'm sorry, but black people, we don't get to determine whether pro-black is anti-white, first of all, because being pro-black is not simply looking at other black people or looking in the mirror and feeling good about yourself. Pro-blackness involves a restructuring of society in such a way that is in the interest, that serves the interest of black people. It's creating policies. It even involves redrawing borders. If you are a pro-black person, then you are for the abolition of not just colonial borders on the African continent, but you have to be for the free movement of African people across the globe, since we have been displaced, colonized. The Haiti and Jamaica, Guyana, these black populations have been tied into neo-colonial oppression and exploitation that allows for them to be able to move. Pro-blackness means arming black people with the training and the weapons needed for self-defense. Pro-blackness involves displacing populations whose whole economic system and entire self-identity is rooted in exploitation of us, harming us, being above us. So to truly be pro-black, the moment you say you're pro-black, you make every racist, every predatory person, every anti-black person your enemy if you're truly pro-black. As Kwame Ture put it very crudely, he said, if you claim to love your mother and you see someone attacking your mother and you do nothing about it, you don't truly love your mother. It's not just an emotion. It is an emotion or a feeling or an idea or disposition that provokes certain actions. So if you understand what whiteness is, the concept of whiteness, now you could say, if you want to be accurate, you could say pro-black isn't anti-Irish. Pro-black isn't anti-Scandinavian. Pro-black isn't anti-Roma Gypsy, because those are ethnic groups. Those are populations with a long history. And you can say, listen, I can serve and represent the interests of black people without violating or going to direct warfare with all Irish people. But that's not what whiteness is. That's not what it means to be whiteness. It is a big difference when a white person comes up and say, "Well, I'm a Scotsman. I'm British. I'm a Frenchman," versus when a white person says, "I am white." Because whiteness is nothing more than a predatory self-concept, an opposition. White is defined by what it is against, not what it is for. So yes, you have to be anti-white. Even white people are figuring this out. Even white folks, there's populations of white people who are now understanding this. We got to get rid of the notion, the concepts, the practices, the culture, the identity of whiteness. There is no reason to have a blob or a population of white. What whiteness is when the Anglo-Saxon Protestants came here and they saw that the land was full of natives, and then they proceeded to bring millions of Africans here against their will. And so they had to open up to bring more white people here. And when an Italian, look it up, white folks used to have signs in their windows that didn't just say no colored, no Negroes, no Mexicans. The signs said no Jews, no Catholics, no Irish. They had neighborhoods where white people couldn't, not white, Italians couldn't buy homes in certain neighborhoods. They had golf courses that didn't allow people of the Jewish faith to become members of the golf courses. There was no concept of whiteness, no real concept of whiteness. I'm a Protestant, you know, I'm English, you know, I'm German, I'm an Italian, a Roman, a Greek. The only reason white folks came up with whiteness was to consolidate all these formerly separate and hostile populations of white people to attack non-white people. So I'm sorry, you're not pro-black if you are not anti-white. I don't know, you can maybe call yourself pro-humanity, you can call yourself pacifist. There's a lot of titles you can have, but one title you cannot crown yourself with accurately is pro-black if you're not anti-white. And I know it's going to make it hard for you to go amongst liberal white people and, you know, do what, you know, I don't know what y'all do with y'all white friends. Whatever y'all do to socialize with white people progressively, to go to rallies and go to drink pumpkin flavored coffee drinks at Starbucks in the fall and winter, whatever, you know, you black people who move amongst white people, whatever y'all do together, it's hard for you to acknowledge, hell, you know, in order for me to truly be pro-black, I'm going to have to consciously and deliberately work to tear down everything that makes this possible. I have to obliterate your very identity of whiteness, let alone that's the psychological element. But I got to get rid of your military, your industrial infrastructure, your currency needs to be burned and obliterated. Like almost everything that makes it possible for you to live what you identify as a good life, or as Obama called it, we won't apologize for our way of life. I have to obliterate your way of life and most of the material infrastructure that makes your way of life possible. And if you can come up with some language to say I'm pro this and anti, I'm sorry. and anti that, it's just not true. True pro-blackness is anti-white. And that's what, you know, white people wouldn't invest literally trillions of dollars over dozens of generations, destroying the concept of blackness, telling black people that our skin is a curse from God, that our facial features are grotesque, that our hair texture is wild and savage. They wouldn't put us on TV in Disney cartoons. Soon as the white man got a camera, soon as the white man figured out how to animate drawn pictures, the first thing he did was make Birth of a Nation and draw black people as characters in old black and white cartoons, from Mickey Mouse to Bugs Bunny. And they were doing this well into the 70s and 80s. Popeye, I used to love Popeye the Sailor Man. And they all had black characters slumped over, big lips. So that was all to destroy the concept of blackness, and they still do it today. But now they act like it's an accident. Gucci will make a monkey face sweater. Chanel will make a monkey caricature keychain, and they're like, oops, there it is. Oops, there it is. Like, they pretend like it's by accident, but it's conscious and deliberate. If you know, with a multinational corporation, in order to have a because I have AfricanWorldOrder.com. I have a line of shirts and other products and accessories at AfricanWorldOrder.com, the aesthetics of liberation. And for us to create a shirt or a cap or a coffee mug, to sit down, design it, review it, lay it out, nobody's putting out racist images by accident. And you got a big ass conglomerate like Gucci. They didn't accidentally make that monkey sweater. So white folks understand that we can't have, and that all that's done to demean black people, not just in the eyes of white people, but to demean black people in the eyes of black people. Because if they didn't need to demean us in our own eyes, white folks have their secret societies. They have lodges white people have preserved for themselves all over the world, where they can do things in secret, G7 summits, hitting chambers in the UN building, in the White House, and in the Pentagon. If they just wanted to hate on us for their own pleasure, they could do it in a way that we didn't see those images. Right now, there's a whole industry of underground Nazi paraphernalia. And some of the coolest, hippest white people we all love. You go to their sub basement, you go to their wine cellar and find the secret compartment, and there's all this Nazi memorabilia. There's a whole underground culture of buying, selling, and trading forbidden. They love that. Not to mention Eyes Wide Shut, sex dungeons, and all kind of weird stuff that white folks do in white folks spaces that they exclude other people from. And I ain't saying white folks are the only people to do it. I'm saying since they stole and colonized most of the world, they have the most resources to set things up to do it. You know, when black people, we want to do something secret, we tape brown paper bags on the wall at the local storefront church. We can't create subfloors upon subfloors and underground chambers. We don't even have the money for that. And even if we had the money, we don't get the licensing, the contract licensings and the permits from the city to do it. So all I'm saying is, if white folks just wanted to look at monkey images of black people, degrading, dehumanizing images of black people for their own enjoyment, they could do it and we'd never know about it. Except for there'll be some kooky black people running around like these Illuminati black people, these New World Order black people, saying they got secret chambers where they show degrading images, movies, stereotypes of black people. And all the black masses will be like, oh, here come all that crazy hotep. Because whenever we look at TV, we see life-affirming, encouraging images of black folks in the animation, movies, and on the radio. But it's not just enough for them to see it. They need us to be anti-black. That's why they have literally make black people multimillionaires if they get on the stage and affirm white stereotypes. There was a rapper back in the day literally said, no, it was WC of the Mad Circle, who was a intelligent, conscious rapper. But he literally said, I get on the stage and grab my nuts. I get on the stage and act like a subhuman, and I get paid for that. They want me to get on the stage and be antisocial, criminal. They want me to demonstrate a black man who can't control his desires, his lust, whether I want to drink, smoke, or have sex. I'm going to do it in the most aggressive, degrading way to women as possible. And white folks is writing checks, while the positive hip hop, the conscious hip hop, barely got off the ground. So anyway, they need us to be, they need us to see, they need us to know, because they understand pro-white is anti-black. You don't have whiteness without diminished, oppressed, exploited blackness. You know, that's like saying pro-water is not anti-fire. Yes, it is. Bring them together and see what happens. One cancels and is in ongoing conflict with the other. And the only way you can have them exist without conflict is to separate them as far as possible from each other. The closer they get, the more volatile your situation is, and one's going to either evaporate the other or one's going to extinguish the other. So pro-black in its truest form, applied, lived, embraced pro-blackness as anti-white. And denying that makes you anti-black. They would not invest in generations, trillions of dollars, in destroying our self-image if you could be pro-black, and they don't want us to be pro-black. They don't want, at the best, if you want this pro-blackness, they got this new, and you can't, there's no such thing as individual pro-blackness either. That's a new thing. I love my blackness. If you only love your blackness, that ain't nothing but a blip on a screen. If your love for blackness only extends beyond your fingertips, you ain't pro-black. My blackness. Your blackness isn't yours. You know why? Because the blackness that you are came from literally millions of years of evolution and thousands of years of culture, development, endurance, resistance. Your existence is a byproduct of the actions of millions and billions of black people that came before you, dummy. So it ain't just you. You didn't make yourself. And your existence is exponentially divided between from your parents too, and then their parents. That right there makes you the byproduct. What's that? 2, 2, 2, 6. And then each of those parents have parents, and on down the line. And you can't just count your parents. Whatever coach or teacher or inspirational figure in your parents' life that made them who they are also impacted you. You got all this other, and then you want to talk about my black, me, my, I. But that's white behavior. That's an anti-black. You can't, there's individualism. You are a wonderful, appreciated, value individual. There's a difference between individual and individualism. There's a difference between being an individual and having an individualistic mentality, which I am not going to go into. Because now I want to talk about this other idiotic nonsense. And I see some intelligent black people pushing this BS. That black people, our conflict is with racism, not with racist. Our conflict, black people are against racism. Black people are not against white people. Black people are fighting against racism. Black people are not fighting against white folks. That's like saying you're not beefing with rapists, you're only against rape. Amos Wilson used to bang his podium when he talked because he was mad about this thing, two things. one called abstraction and another called um being, what do you call, well, subjectivism, or being subjective and abstract. You can't fight against racism. You're fighting against other people. And things like racism, racist, white supremacist, or what, those are just titles. Those are abstractions. Those are symbols to help you to define and identify flesh and bone people. Racism does not make white people. White people make racism. So it is black versus white. It's just not an abstraction. You can't really fight racism. That's just a word, an idea, a concept. You have to go fight this particular police precinct, this policeman, this politician, this predatory Catholic priest. Oh, I'm against pedophilia. And how you going to attack pedophilia and try to work your way around the pedophiles, or not want to identify, name, and put a stamp on the pedophiles? We just keep trying to dilute and play games with this. And our enemies don't play that. You know, they put names and faces to their enemies. You know, now you might look at the US news and say, well, we're fighting terrorism. But when they go overseas, they killing people with names, faces. Those are human intestines that are being smeared across the pavement. I'm sorry, not even in the pavement, because in many of these countries where the United States is committing horrendous atrocities, killing thousands of uncounted people, they don't even have paved roads. They don't even have infrastructure. The United States is at war using aircraft carriers and drones against people who don't even have a functional modern airport, let alone an air force or a truly developed navy in Afghanistan, Somalia, across Central Africa with AFRICOM. So the blood is in the sand. It's not even on the roads. Libya. So they might say they're fighting terrorism, but they killed Mullah Omar. They've got people with actual names down, still torturing people for no reason down in Guantanamo Bay. But we want to pretend like we're fighting an extraction. You know, you walk into a cobweb and you just start swinging. The spider that made that cobweb is on down the street making a dozen other cobwebs while you there screaming, thinking, oh, this web is on my face. I can't even see it, but I know it's there. And you just swinging your arms wildly. That's what fighting racism looks like. By the time we address one form of racism, by the time we're out here marching against police brutality for the last 200 damn years, we out here marching against police brutality, the actual racist is down the road creating racist artificial intelligent robots. By the time we even get to challenging the old racism, the oppressor, the white people, have created 10 more forms of racism we don't even know about yet. Racist Tesla cars. You know, my grandkids going to be like, well, Tesla AI cars have been proven to accelerate when black pedestrians are in the street 10 times more often. Then we're going to be protesting artificial AI. And by then there'll be artificial, you know, sentient mushrooms that are racist sentient mushrooms. So until we get to the heart of the matter, as long as we're fighting racism, which is something that is the overall concept, and we're not fighting the racists, the people who create and maintain and profit from racism, we just want to fight the byproduct, you know, then you're never going to cure the problem. If your house is infested with rodents and you're only dealing with the rodent poop, And I'm just against rodent poop. I'm not against the rodent. So as you cleaning up the rodent poop, the rodent is already down the hallway dropping more poop, and you're gonna just constantly be playing catch up. So that is the dumbest thing. And I want to say shame on the black folks who say that black people versus racism, not black people versus white. You know, I mean, I don't know how black folks, but let's move on, man. We the most oppressed and besieged people, but we don't want to name our enemies. We want to fight against abstraction. We want to organize against concepts and ideas and ignore the people who create and sustain, who constructed those concepts and ideas and perpetuate. We don't want to bump heads with them. And it ain't because of cowardice. It's not because of cowardice. How do I know black folks ain't cowards? I see black people out here gunning and banging. I see black folks enlist in the U.S. military and get the highest medals of honor and praise from the U.S. military. I see black people get on ball fields and ram themselves together at the highest levels of athleticism. You know, black people went to the Berlin Olympics under the Nazi banner and ran and Jesse Owens went to Berlin and defeated the master race in his own house. That's not a coward, but then came back here and had him racing shining shoes and racing horses. That was not a fear of white folks. It's menticide. It's the inability to think properly. Because black folks are brave, or as Dr. Clark said, properly motivated, equipped. He said properly trained, motivated, and equipped. There's no better fighting machine in the world than the black man. But we don't get proper training. We're often ill-equipped, and our motivations are warped because we're chasing after the Yankee dollar. So anyway, yeah, I'm sorry, black people. But in order to get liberation, we may have to take up arms, name names. We can't just fight abstractions and concepts. We have to identify some people and bring down some physical infrastructure, do some things that are rather uncomfortable. You know, our fight, you can imagine Harriet Tubman says, well, I'm against slavery, but I don't want to offend the slave master. I'm against slavery, not the slave master. God, what the hell? Like I said, but I don't think you're a coward if you believe that. I believe you struggle with menticide. I don't test because sometimes people, I just be wanting to fight me. Oh, you think I'm scared? You know, you said I'm scared of white people, and they want to prove that they're not scared of white people by challenging me to a fight. But I'm not white. So, yeah, what are you accomplishing? Oh, you called me a coward. So what's up? Keep that same energy. As some guy just keep that energy. I'ma see you. That's menticide. But let's move on. I don't even want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about it. They said Kanye got $6 billion, the richest black man in U.S. history. Now they done whittled his $6 million to 1.2, $1.3 billion. He's not actually the richest black man currently, or not the richest black man in history. And they said that his value and assessments were inaccurate. So he only has a measly $1.6 billion. But I saw the internet blow up. Black folks are so proud of Kanye. Kanye hates black people. And if you hate black people and you got a lot of resources, you're going to put your resources towards hurting black people. So every dollar Kanye get is a dollar against the interest and well-being of black folks. Kanye has proven to be a theocrat, meaning that he wants the laws, Leviticus, the rules that are laid out in the Holy Bible to govern our lives. He has proven to align himself with the most virulent conservative politics from the Trump administration. Kanye West sat there along with the rest of us for 4 years and saw a president who advocated that we return literally to Jim Crow era politics. And Kanye embraced this man and said he's like my father, and said that his racist logo and symbol gives him power. Kanye is fundamentally anti-black and becoming worse. So I don't see how him having, I think it's bad enough him having artistic influence in the black community, influencing the dress and fashion of the black community. But if he has just $1.6 billion, now he can start to have also material impact, set priorities, influence public policy, become a black leader. We already had one. Amara Inya was a mayoral candidate who was supposed to be progressive. And Kanye came here and wrote her a big check. And that's when she lost credibility with me. Because if you pay the piper, you name the tune. Now, of course, she didn't get elected, but another woman who was financed also by anti-black racist interest became mayor, Lori Lightfoot, and we can just look at her track record. It has been abysmal. But a lot of black people like Kanye, Lori Lightfoot, Obama, they follow Jay-Z. I appreciate Jay-Z for this because he was the only like public figure that's been honest about this. Jay-Z said, "My presence is charity." So a lot of prominent black people feel that black people, like the rest of us, living under, oppression, that black people saying the fact that you just get to see me standing on the throne, the fact that you get to see me in the Oval Office, the fact that you get to see me on the Forbes list, that's all I owe you. That's more than enough for you to live vicariously through me. And for a lot of black people, working class and poor, struggling black people, y'all agree with them because y'all act like that's what y'all feel too. So, but there is no reason in the world for any intelligent black person to celebrate Kanye's ascension to billionaire status. And I don't understand why black people think, number one, black billionaires are not a threat or a challenge to anything white folks got going on. In fact, they are assets of the oppressor, not enemies. I'm not understanding why poor and working class black people, why conscious black people, Pan-African black people celebrate some rando black person ascending to billionaire or multimillionaire status. I don't understand it because somebody, and that inspires you. That's like, to me, you looking at Cecil Rhodes or Bill Gates and say they inspire you. You are a bad person if that is your inspiration and your role model. And I'm not against black folks getting money. I got a very ambitious cousin who's all about making money. He's very ambitious. Y'all would love, shoot, go follow him on social media. He got plans, plots, and schemes. He's getting money, yo. And I'm like, what are you doing when you get all this money? What do you intend to do with it? I mean, especially you own a house, you got a car for each of your adults in the house, and you now as you have everything, what else are you going to do? And pretty much ultimately the answer that I got was, I'm going to make a lot of money so that I can make more money, because what he talks about is I'm going to invest it, buy property, and basically he's making money for the sake of making money. And if you talk to the average money go-getter, they're not going to say, I'm going to use these weapons to buy, I'm going to use this money to buy weapons to arm anti-colonial guerrilla forces. I'm going to use this money to subvert Africa. I'm going to use this money to fund progressive politicians and get them elected to public office. I'm going to use this money to support judges or They might say that if you start to be like, well, that's not very noble, getting money for the sake of getting money, and they start saying that stuff. But the reality is, there's already enough black billionaires. Black billionaires could go and fix the now we got not Flint, but now Mississippi has a water crisis that only costs 2 billion to make. That's throw around money. That's strip club money for our elites. They could go fix, but they don't. So they get money for the sake of money, and I don't understand. And I know some of y'all want to get money for the sake of money too. But what the blood clot is wrong with you that you want money for the sake of money? And some of my trolls, they love to say that I'm pro-poverty, but I'm a socialist. The only people who are pro-poverty are the capitalists because they don't earn their money. They get their money by concentrating the wealth that everyone else makes. So capitalists support poverty. Look at the capitalist nations around the world. The more capitalist the nation, the more concentrated poverty. And the only reason the United States doesn't have third world levels of policy is because they have socialistic regulations. But the socialistic regulations, starting with the Reagan administration, have been slowly eroding. And as the socialist and socialistic public policies and protections are eroding, the higher the poverty rate of the United States is becoming. So I'm a socialist. I'm anti-poverty. If you are a capitalist, you need to be pro-poverty or you're a stupid capitalist. Because your whole idea is, I'm a capitalist and I want to become a practicing capitalist, not just a believer or a whole capitalist just lusting after the rich. But I actually want to become a pimp capitalist. Instead of getting exploited by the capitalist, I want to become the exploiter. You want to be a pimp capitalist, not a whole capitalist. But if you do that, then you can't be like, it's about making money. It's about taking money and concentrating money and then supporting those institutions and politicians from like police, bank, racist banking, imperialist policies that go overseas and take the natural resources from third world countries. Capitalism is about taking and concentrating wealth, not helping other people come up, job creators. Don't believe the hype. So anyway, if I could cuss, I would say the F word, Kanye West and his money. And black people should see Kanye's money not as an inspiration or evidence of how great we are. They should see it as a threat. They should see it as a threat. Imagine, well, I'm not even going to have to give examples, man. I mean, I know I'm fighting a losing battle, but it's like I say, this is a quote from me. I'd rather fail at resistance than succeed at submission. So I'd rather fight a losing battle for a just cause than a winning battle for an unjust cause. But Kanye's wealth and status is a threat to black people. I want to also talk about Mr. Bad Day. You had a bad day. This Robert Aaron Long, who went and shot those six to eight people? 6 Asian women, spa, massage parlor workers, and the sympathetic police, like they did with that white boy that shot them black folks up, 9 people in a church, and they calmly took the white boy in custody and took him to Burger King, made sure he was comfortable as they took him in. Dylan Roof. Now Asian folks just got their own Dylan Roof. Aaron Long. I hope they put Dylan Roof and Aaron Long in a cell together. They can swap stories, I guess. But he had a bad day. But something they're overlooking, that he's part of the incel movement. But I can't really get into that. I will say this. According to Dr. Hartman, Tom Hartman, there have been within the last 5 years, over 40 murders of women by men who are part of this white right-wing evangelical incel movement, involuntary celibate, and it's growing. And even black men are starting to adopt it. But I can't say it goes without saying, black men. Any stupid thing our oppressors do, there's always going to be a population of black people who join in. They can white folks can literally make a religion that say that black skin is the mark of Cain, is evil, and that black people don't have souls and black people can't go to heaven. And that religion, Mormonism, will have black people join up with it. We got black people in the Proud Boys, black people. I mean, the only way to keep a black person out of your organization is to be like the KKK and strictly forbid black participation. But we even got Black Klansmen. It's a hit movie made about it. Can't we just let them have something to themselves? We ain't got to integrate everything. Damn. I mean, I digress. Incel movement. But maybe I'll talk about the concept of incel and how we hearing everybody, the model minority. The Asian community is experiencing an influx of hate crimes. There's a lot to be said about that. But for time, let's move on. I can't. Rest in peace to John Magufuli, the reformist president of Tanzania. Another complex figure. He came in and he actually tried to revive in Tanzania the progressive laws of the post-colonial era. You know, he tried to made real steps to curb, I wouldn't say end, but to curb corruption. He even reduced his own salary by more than half, you know, and put his money back into the pot, started real infrastructure programs, you know, tried to really take over where Gaddafi left off. And but then again, they turn around because he didn't trust the West, the World Health Organization, on COVID relief. He said, you know, he thought that the European, the West, the former colonizers did not have the interest, didn't give a damn about Africa's health, never have. So why would they believe um, they're coming to save Africa from COVID? But anyway, rest in peace to that brother. He still has some issues. Here's the thing: you can have. This is the problem, which I'm going to get into because people want to talk about spirituality. This man was pro-black, pan-African, reformist president, but he was also a loyal Roman Catholic, just like Mugabe. Remember the militant Mugabe take up an AK-47 and shoot down the Rhodesian colonizers? Guerrilla fighter, black armed rebel, but his whole life he was a Roman Catholic. So this mental contradiction. You're either going to, where you want to decolonize your country, but can't even decolonize your own personal brain. But I'm not going to get too deep in that. But because of his Catholic views, because of his Western views, he had a lot of issues with women's rights, LGBTQ rights and conflicts. And then there were certain ethnic, religious conflict. He was beefing with the Episcopal leadership in his own country over, like, literally two black people fighting over two different colonial religions while they're supposedly trying to fight neo-colonialism. It's a mess. Ain't no such thing as halfway liberated. You can't free yourself from the economic shackles and still hold on to the religious shackles. And that's a good segue into the topic. African spirituality versus religion. And I started to talk about specific religions, but in spiritual systems and spiritual practices. But here's the problem. We're trying to talk about something that is based wholly on fiction and wholly made up. You can't lock anybody down. Now, if I walked into the room and said, I'm a computer scientist, I'm a biologist, you know, I'm a physicist, I'm a mathematician, then or even if I say I'm a historian or a political scientist, then you can lock me into some space. If I could walk into a room and say I'm a political scientist and I make the assertion that conservative ideology or conservative policies or Republican economic platform is good for the American worker, then we can simply go get the documents. We can look at NAFTA, GATT, we can look at deregulation, we can look at subsidies given to the coal industry and look at the larger economic and social impacts those policies has had over time. You can confirm it. But if I say the universe inspires and the universe has rained abundance upon me, how are you going to confirm or deny that? It's non-falsifiable. So I decided I'm not going to ever be able to win a discussion unless we get down to, and unless we accept the fundamental facts. But let me give you some of the reference books that I have for this discussion. But I don't want to, because the moment I say Akan, religious rituals, Ifa, you know, the Dogon or the Tree of Life system from the Kemetic, moment I say anything specific, Rastafarian, once I name any particular Black spiritual system or religion, I'm just going to shatter into 1,000,001 pieces because there's all these denominations. And a lot of people are like, well, my spirituality is just to me. So I'm going to approach this from a broader topic, but I do want to say I do have some groundings. Books like the Matunda Chair, written by Ra-Un-Nefer Amen, Volume 1 and 2, from the Kemetic. I have another book that I've read, hella interesting, Gods and Oracles and Divination by Kalu Agba. I have this book. Every Black person has this book, Baba Ifa Kadre, Handbook of Yoruba Religious Practices. Really good book, The Rastafarians. And then the book that kind of tries to blow all this up. Oh, Pygmy Katabu. John G. Jackson recommended this book to me years ago. Very interested in the concepts of the African divinity and origins of African life. But then there's a couple of books that kind of allow you to take, and there's dozens of other books, but one book is Tribalism, Mysticism, Primitivism, and the Rise of Genocide Against the African World. It talks somewhat about African belief system, folklores, myth, self-concepts, and how they are impacting us in the modern world. Then another interesting book by archaeologist Marvin Harris is Cows, Pigs, Wars, and Riches, The Riddles of Culture, that basically talk about how groups of people form belief systems. And why do you find certain beliefs across all cultures? Like every culture you go to, they have this concept of witches or the supernatural or gods, like certain things all cultures have, sacred animals, taboos. And why do humans just across cultures that have never contacted each other, from Easter Island to Madagascar, have certain overlaps? When you find humans together in a group, in a society or civilization, there's certain things those humans are going to do, even if, and it's almost independent, instinctually we do. So just some interesting books. But first thing I want to talk about, since it's atheism versus African spirituality. Spirituality basically are behaviors and beliefs related to the immaterial. That's all it is. Whatever you believe about the soul, the immaterial, the ether, things cannot be weighed, touched, measured, grasped. Like the soul, supernatural beings, or concepts of ideas. You know, and so like to work with wood, we call that carpentry. And if you work with wood, whether constructing houses or building chairs and tables, we call you a carpenter. Or if you do the same thing with metal, you're a metal worker. If you do that in terms of identifying and engaging with animal species in their environment, we call you a biologist. If you advocate for revolutionary struggle and radical analysis on the radio, we call you a broadcaster or a radio show host. But if you are a person who seeks to influence, cultivate, transform, empower, direct this immaterial thing we call a soul or a spirit, soul with your own personal soul or spirit, or those supernatural beings, those non-material beings we call souls, duppy, ghosts, ancestors who aren't here physically, but you believe that they have some impact and some presence in some form, then you are a spiritual person. And spirituality isn't inherently malevolent or benevolent, which means you have spiritual people who literally do evil things. And you have spiritual people who do good things that are motivated by the spirit. And you have spirit in the secular sense, meaning your general disposition. So if my team is going to the Super Bowl and I have team spirit, so I'm like, yes, even though I've been sitting at home all NFL season, I ain't done a push-up, let alone scored a touchdown on a football field. I still feel connected to that, even though there's nothing physical or material. Me watching the Chicago Bears, I live in Chicago. The Chicago Bears, many of them don't even live in Chicago, but they got Chicago in their name. So that's the connection, the very weak connection. And they play over there on the lakeshore. So whatever, I take these little bitty irrelevant connections. I live in Chicago. The football team is named after Chicago and plays sometime in Chicago. And then I build all that. That's my team. And when they win, I win. And it representing for the city. And all this I build up. That's team spirit. There's nothing really of substance there. I have to use my imagination to pretend like there's some connection. That's team spirit. Or sometimes people say you have negative energy or negative spirit, demonic spirit. And it just sounds like it has more gravity than saying you have a bad attitude or you're being unpleasant or you and I don't get along. We don't really resonate with each other. But we'll say, well, because I don't like you or I don't like how you look or whatever's going on with you, I'm going to pretend like there's some supernatural thing like, oh, this person is radiating negative energy. Their spirit is askew or they are possessed by a demonic spirit. So spirituality and spirituality is the manipulation, the belief in and the manipulation of spirits. And you can use real world things like candles, incantations, cowrie shells, cards with certain symbols and words on it. You can use rhythms, chants. You can use things that are in the real world. But if I say I'm going, because that sound helps me to physiologically calm myself, helps me to root out distracting noises, then I can be secular. I could be a secular atheist person and use religious or spiritual techniques to help me. Let's say I'm trying to open a business and every day I got to do all this boring, mundane stuff. I got to go down the city to get my license. I got to talk to contractors. I got to do feasibility studies and market research, just unpleasant stuff. So in order to give more weight or give more levity to this action, I can say, well, I'm going to set up a shrine to Madam C.J. Walker, my great ancestor, who is a business icon. So I go set up a area in the house that's sacred to me. And I put a hot comb and burn the candles. And the candles is to carry the heat of the candle. I know heat rises. So when I evoke this ancestor, I want to bring her spirit into me. And even though Madam C.J. Walker is dead and has nothing, that helps me to orient my physical mind to think, to appreciate. Like, I know a lot of this business stuff. I just want to be a tycoon. I want to walk the red carpet. But before I could be a tycoon and walk the red carpet and be beloved by the community because I got rich and they didn't, I don't know why we love Black people who simply get rich. I don't know what it got to do with us. But if I want to be that person, it allows me to go sit and do the mundane, non-glamorous stuff of constructing and operating a business, but it allows me to psych myself up, helps me to get biochemically reduced endorphins. So I'm not just a person needlessly or profitably grinding away at a laptop all day to get my business going. There's also a higher purpose to what I'm doing. And I understand that people do that. I understand why I do it. I understand the physical effects. I've been in church and I know there's no God, no Holy Spirit. But the tambourine and the chanting of the minister and how they talk in such a way to literally hypnotize you. And all that's going on, and everybody's rocking in unison, and you got this big, heavy Bible weighing you down, and it's hot in the church, and your brain is slightly deprived of oxygen, and people get the Holy Spirit and fall out on the floor. Fall out. And you can't tell them there wasn't some supernatural force that compelled them to get up out that seat and dance down that aisle, go before the altar and lay down their burdens lay down their burdens at the altar. So that's what spirituality is. Simply, we have this combination of physiological, psychological, emotional phenomenon that happen with us. And we like to believe that it has some supernatural element to it. And that within us is a magical supernatural force called a soul or a spirit. And that soul or spirit will live beyond us, help us to defeat the horrors of death, to overcome death, that will live beyond us. And there are other supernatural forces that can impact us, that can connect with that supernatural power within us, and then motivate us, empower us, help us to endure unpleasant things. That's ultimately what spirituality is. And then religion is simply creating formal structures to house and to dictate and control and direct the process. I often say, because people like to say, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. They like to say I'm spiritual, not religious. And they think that's deep. But in reality, in practice, historically, spirituality is religion for lazy people. Because if I say I'm a Muslim, then I got to go to the masjid and bump my whole head on the floor several times a week. There's times of the year I can't eat when I might want to eat. There's so many rules. The way I dress, how many wives I can have, how often I can beat that wife, and what instruments I can use to beat that wife. So many rules. But if I say I'm spiritual, then I can handpick the elements of Islam that I like and reject the others. As a spiritual person, I believe that I should grow my beard and never shave, never put a razor to my face, and not, and I can just make up my own reasons. Energetic forces transmit through your hair follicles. So it's a religion for lazy people. And I've never met a spiritual person that didn't engage in rituals and didn't have dogma. I once went to Harlem, New York, to buy shea butter. And she had shea butter, beautiful containers. So I picked one up and she said, you can't touch the containers because you transfer your energy to it. So anything I can handle it for you because my energy has been neutralized. since I go through the ritual to neutralize my energy so that I don't transfer energy into that. And then when you buy my product, you transfer, you energize it and make it your own. She had this whole thing when all I wanted was something to put on these ashy elbows. And I had to listen to this whole thing. And this girl will tell you she's not religious, but she has created for herself as many rituals and limitations on herself as any Bible thumper, uh, Bible humper, mosque head thumper, or Hasidic or Orthodox Jew had. She had all these different rituals, things you could or couldn't do, and that was just in her kiosk. She was a vendor. She had like a kiosk in the Harlem market. So I'm just like, if this is what you do, you go into the business of the average Muslim, they selling you cigarettes and alcohol. You go into the business of an average Christian, you go to a bank. I have a brother who's a devout Christian, but he worked at a bank charging interest when the Bible said that interest, you can't charge interest. It's a sin. And he was in there with the money changer. And the only time his Lord and Savior ever got violent is when he was in a bank. When you're a Christian and you go work in a bank. So anyway, well, I'm saying spiritual people are very religious to the point where they have rituals, they have dogmas, they place based on their religious beliefs, they place limitations and grant themselves certain privileges based on that. That's all religious is. The physical materials and the ritualistic actions you take based on that belief. That's all it is. I know you want to think it's more than that. So, but if you don't want to follow a book from 15,000 years ago or follow teachings from some primitive bestial culture that has been imposed, you don't want to be evangelical. Instead of going to the tabernacle, going to the cathedral, you just go to your corner room with the shrine. But the same thing that motivates you to go kneel at your shrine in your house and throw some cowrie shells, it's the same thing that got your grandma going to the tabernacle, putting a little change in the basket. It's the same thing. Spirituality is religion for lazy people. There's no way you can be spiritual or non-religious, and there's no way to be religious and non-spiritual. All religious people are spiritual. All spiritual people are religious. I've yet to find one that wasn't. And if you are a spiritual person who claims you aren't religious, if you tell me about how you engage your spirituality, how you practice your spirituality, I bet you I can identify religious elements within your practice of your spirituality. I hate to break this to you. And I know there's probably people running some curses on me right now. I have some people, calling down some ancestors. I'm going to say some more things y'all don't like. But let me talk about atheism for a second. Because now I have to define what spirituality is and why I can't sit here and say, because I know people would say, well, somebody asked me, brother, you always talking about the Muslims, the Christians, the Mormons, the Jehovah's Idiots, wickedness, Jehovah's Witness, whatever. You always talking about all these mainstream religions, these so-called white religions, slave religion, colonizers religion, world religions, or as Dr. Clark calls them, all of these modern world religions, including the Buddhism and Hinduism. A lot of Black people get in with these colonizers, oppressor religion and pretend like they deeper and more enlightened than the Black Christian. If you're a Black Buddhist or Black Hindu, you just as lost as a Black Christian or Muslim. Sorry to tell you, but I digress. They say, you always talk about that, but you never talk about African spirituality. What are your views? And people, if you read my writings, follow my hashtags, I say African gods only. I say give them back their gods. So I don't. And I know brothers, Ifa, I know Asur men who follow the tree of life cultivation system. I know sisters who live by the laws, the divine laws of Ma'at. I know mad Black folks that are very spiritual, I've been to everything from Bodum to Yoruba to Rastafarian drum circles and rituals, Nyabingi drum circles. I've been around and participated in. You know, I went to a ritual where the priestess had evoked Shango and had us dancing and fully involved in Yoruba rituals. Fully participate. I've even erected ancestral shrines and shrines to the Orisha. I've had some of my brothers that were members of the Fahami Temple give me readings. They said some weird stuff. Sound mad personal, but I'm not alien to African spirituality. And most, if you are a member of the conscious community, if you are a member of a Black empowerment organization, you're going to have, if you go to Kwanzaa events and pouring libations and calling down ancestors, if you're just embedded in the Black community, unless you're in some like truly hyper regressive Uncle Tom population of Black folks, if you're around just around the way Black folks, you're going to see elements. Even if you go to a Black Christian church, you're going to see elements of African spirituality. Even in the mosque, I hate to admit this. Mosque, what is it, 43 or 47? On Truce, I don't know if I don't think it's there anymore. Truce is gentrifying, so they didn't ran the Muslims off the block. But Black folks, we gonna be Black folks no matter where we at. Our Blacks, even when Black people take weapons, you go read the book Bloods. You read about the Black experience in Vietnam. Even when we go to fight wars on behalf of our imperialist oppressors, we do it in a Black way. Africa's inside me. That's speech said. I mean, we can't escape Africa. So everything we do Africa, whether we do right or wrong, we do it in an African way. So when Black people participate in religion and spirituality, we do it Black. But I digress. Let's talk about atheism. Atheism means without a God. Theism means God. A means without. So an atheist is a person who has no God, who rejects, some atheists, many atheists say, I don't say that there is no God because that's non-falsifiable. I say that there's no evidence of God. God has never been proven or demonstrated. The supernatural, the soul. There are a lot of religious atheists. There are atheists I know personally that celebrate Christmas to get the Christmas tree and buy the presents. There are atheists I know that go to church, that play organ in church and dance around in church because it's a party. It's a performance. Sing the hymnals. I mean, it's really great. Imagine all your people in your community come together once a week to sing songs, to tell fantastical stories about worldwide floods. It's like the freaking Avengers movies. There's floods, there's giants. There are literally Leviathan, great monstrous creatures, people living inside of fishes, people, using telekinesis, spontaneous combustion, sword fights, and dragons, and sex, a whole lot of sex, freaky deaky sex. So I know some atheists who go to church, and it's like, I never used to get high. I never drank, I didn't smoke weed, I never get high. And back in the early 90s, if you was around going to places like the Sound Factory Bar, and this is like still in the era where cocaine and marijuana and just like it wasn't no Molly, Percocet. People were actually drinking, sipping on the scissor, but some of the more designer, newer drugs weren't around. But everybody in the club was high. If you went to a rave, especially, anybody remember those raves? Those they'd have raves in the middle of a plowed cornfield, and somebody's dad would have keys to a corporate building, and they would go into this skyscraper on one of the random remodeled floors and have a rave. Everybody in there is high. But I would go to raves, I would go to these club, Irving Plaza, the Tunnel, and I'd be completely sober. Or it didn't even have to be a major club. Shout out to Rich Man. We'd go to the smallest bar. We used to sit there at the smallest bar, or we go to the Buddha Lounge and play pool. And I'd be the only sober person there. And like the smallest bar, they had these chess tables at the bar. And I'm not a very good chess player, but I win everybody. People thought I was a freaking genius because I was sober. And everybody else was high or drunk, and I'm just checkmate, checkmate, checkmate. Like set up the table. It's 8 people. Like Rich. Shout out to Rich again. When he was sober, I couldn't beat him at chess. But he burned a spliff, get a couple of Guinness stouts and Heinekens in him. I'm checkmate, checkmate, just whooping him like he stole something. Same thing. I go to the Buddha Lounge when Stretch Armstrong was playing hip hop, and they had like arcade games in the corner, and I go over there and beat everybody at Street Fighter. They had a pool table. I'm a less than mediocre pool player, and I'd run the table the whole night. So anyway, I'm saying all that to say is when your mind is about you and you're around a bunch of other people whose mind isn't centered, isn't fully engaged, when you go somewhere being cognitive and sober and everybody else is high off the Lord or high off the spliff, it's a different experience for you. You're in the same space going through the same thing, but the way the experience reads for you is different. So I ain't saying I got a kick out of it. It's just something I came to notice, like, damn, everybody in here is high, or my whole crew is all a little off. And I wasn't even popular. The reason I got invited to everything, because I was the designated driver. When I was at Downstate State University of New York and the basketball team, like one night I went out. I'm 6'3", and one night I was the shortest guy in the crew. The Bolingbrook, rest in peace to G. Gertrell. The whole Stony Brook basketball, I've been in Chicago too long, invited me out to kick it with them. And we went to the Cheetah Club, a strip club, and I was partying like a rock star because, the college athletes were rock stars. And I was the shortest dude. Like, I was the smallest guy in the crew. And they only invited me is because G told them, yo, I know a dude who don't drink, he don't smoke, he don't do nothing. And he stays up all night. So they came and got me out of my little unfurnished apartment. And I went out and I thought, man, I'm really one of the guys. But nope. They were like, oh, let's leave the strip club and go get some sandwiches. And I'm driving them there like, yeah, we going to get some sandwiches. Like, no, you taking us to get some sandwiches. But I digress. You don't want to feel my pain. I was 18 and stupid. What do you want from me? Anyway, I know atheists who go to church so that they can take in, even though they don't get caught in the spirit, they realize the phenomenon. They're like amateur archaeologists, watching this culture happen, unfold before their eyes. And an atheist can do that because there are no requirements given by atheists. You can watch someone engage in delusional behavior and it doesn't, people say that atheism is a religion, but it's not, because a religion has requirements. It has rituals. It has standards. There is nothing required of an atheist. The only thing an atheist does is say, listen, demonstrate God in a way that can be measured, weighed, observed, repeated within a scientific structure and within the limits of human perception. Touch, taste, feel, sight. Demonstrate your claim to me. If I come, like I just said, I made a claim, I'm 6'3", and someone says, well, I reject that you're 6'3". Very easy thing to resolve. Let's get a tape measure. And then you say, well, let's get several tape measures. Let's get something that measures feet, inches, centimeters, and meters, and let's use several tape measures, and let's secure those tape measures from a secure source. Let's get a laser measurement. And there's ways it can be demonstrated. Then whether I am being honest about that or I'm properly informed or ill-informed. And that's all atheists do. They say there is no evidence. People like to say atheist is a white thing, that black people are a spiritual people. We are not a spiritual people. I don't like that quote. African people and a lot of people I respect, like Dick Gregory used to promote the idea that African people had some special level of spiritual endowment, but we are not a spiritual people. But I'm not. I'll get into that. Or we are spiritual, but no more spiritually endowed or less. And we're just African in our spirituality, where other people tend to be Asian, Polynesian, or Eurocentric in there. So the way we do is in it, we have a very African way about us, but that doesn't mean that it's absent. People tell me that atheism is a Eurocentric or a Western thing, and then I go and show them these grand cathedrals. I mean, white folks are more religious and therefore spiritual than anybody else. Who has fought more wars over religion? They have shed as much blood over religious dogma as they have shed over territory. That's crazy. Like everybody has territorial wars. Everybody has war for resources, but only very specific culture. Read the Iceman's Inheritance. Actually went to war because they said, well, transubstantiation. When you eat the bread, when you go and take communion and you eat the bread, it actually turns to the body of Christ. And you drink the wine and it literally turns to the blood. And then another group of Christians said, nope, it's only symbolic. It's like, no, it's literal. No, it's symbolic. I'm going to cut your tongue out. You are an infidel. Well, you're going to cut my tongue out. I'm going to take bamboo shards and shove them up your fingernails until you acknowledge who the true God is. And then after you acknowledge who the true God is through torture, I'm going to send you to see that God. That's, man, it don't, man, I mean, y'all want to tell these people they're not spiritual? Africans, I ain't seen them get down like that. In fact, we didn't start hacking each other up over religious ideas until the Arab Muslims and the European Christians came and taught. They had to come and teach us how to hack each other up over dogmas. Because before you'd be like, oh, Obatala, and somebody come and be like, I ain't with Obatala. And you're like, very well. Well, we over Obatala over here. You know, them dudes over there, them alpha males, they on some Legba Ogun or Chosi over there, you know, Okula Kungu, them folks is up the river. Go wherever you want, or just stay where you are. It don't matter. Ain't nobody gonna cut your tongue out for not initiating Obatala or Obatala. Nobody's gonna harass you. Oh, do you, player? The Egyptians, the Kemites, before the Arab hordes, the Islamic hordes invaded, built some of the biggest religious, spiritual monuments. Their religious symbology was embedded in every element of their society. Everybody was a priest. If you were a scribe, back then, priest was synonymous with professional. Everybody was a priesthood of their job. You were a scribe, you were a stonemason, you were a midwife, you were priesthoods. You would train and initiate, very religious. But there's no record of somebody saying, well, you know, well, this law of Ma'at is a legitimate law of Ma'at, and this negative confession should be edited. Oh, no, we disagree on a religious concept, and let's hack each other to death and torture each other to death and go to war over this. Crusades, religious crusade, religious wars. We just didn't do that. Somebody doing something religious, and you come to them and be like, I don't agree with that. I'll kill you. I'm like, oh, well, good for you. Well, go do what you do agree with. If you ain't down with this, go find something you are down with and do that. That's why there were so many gods. That's why there were so many rituals. So it was so diverse. You go in Europe, you cross a border, and you say, well, you're in France. Well, you better be Catholic or they'll kill you. You're in England, you better be Protestant or you'll kill you. Well, now you're in Spain, you better go back to being Catholic or they will kill you. Like, fine, I'm Protestant, I'm in England. Well, are you Anglican or Lutheran? And if you pick the wrong one, we'll kill you. It's crazy. You know, I ain't even got to go because Islam is still in their crusader stage. They still in hacking everybody up stage. The Europeans, they were like, we have evolved. Christianity has evolved beyond hacking people up for God. Now they drone bomb you. They kill you with robots for God. And they think they're better than suicide bombers who are killing people for God. So anyway, enough. Atheism is a person, an individual who simply acknowledge that there has been no evidence of gods, angels, deities, or even the presence of a human soul that survives beyond the body. Everything we know to be attributed to the soul is a byproduct of our biology. Our central nervous systems, our neurons firing off, our brain, and information being brought in and interpreted by our senses. We conclude that what can be demonstrated or falsified is what we will accept, and everything else is basically something that we are not obligated to accept. There is no atheist religion. There is no atheist scriptures. There is no requirements or limitations on an atheist life. You can be a vegan atheist, a meat-eating atheist. You can be a racist atheist or pro-human or non-anti-racist, anti-fascist atheist. You can be a fascist atheist because atheism unto itself, having that conclusion, does not require anything of you. You can be an atheist who goes to church, who celebrates religious holidays. You can be an atheist who fasts during the season of Ramadan for the physiological benefits and for the social connection it brings you. And the only people who put these requirements on, oh, you're an atheist, that means nothing else. I don't see evidence of God. Please demonstrate. Please provide evidence for your claim. I don't see the evidence, therefore I will not take any actions based on your claims because you have not given the most fundamental evidence for what you claim to believe or to know. And there's nothing else. There is nothing that an atheist do. Now, atheists do have, as atheists, certain missions. Like a group of atheists will join a group to say, we want to maintain the separation of religion and state. We don't want the 10 commandments up in the courts. We don't want mandated prayer in schools. Because we don't say, well, replace religious prayers with atheist incantations. We just say keep religion out of civic life because that is the law of the land. No state apparatus. If you send your child to a religious school or to a Quran school or a Quranic school, then you can do all the religious crap you want. But in a state school that's sponsored, so people are like, well, the atheists are against religion. No, we're just against the improper imposition of religion, and that goes for all religion. Atheists will just aggressively oppose Christian prayer led by a teacher or a state bureaucrat, as we would an Islamic Hindu prayer, or bringing a yogi in to guide meditation. But religious people are also part of those efforts. Many people who actually believe in God understand that they don't want intelligent believers understand to say, well, if the government starts to say you can pray in churches, if the government starts to assert that we will advocate for and push religion, then what if they choose a religion or denomination that's different than mine? Or I'm happy the government's making us pray in church. And so you're praying and you send your child, pray in school, and your child goes and prays to Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. And one day you go to sleep and the Prophet Muhammad appears to you in a dream and you convert from Christianity to Islam. And then the next day your child is going back to that school that you advocated for prayer in, saying in the name of Jesus, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then you got to be like, whoa, no, he can't pray on his knees. He got to face down, ass up his prayers from here on out. And then you got to go fight. Are you going to fight to stop the Christian prayers or fight to change them to Islamic prayer? So a lot of religious people understand. Because my own family, they went from being Methodist, AME, to being Baptist. They went from the Missionary Baptist Church to the Memorial Baptist Church. There were all these changes in dogma. My family went from a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus of my great-grandma to now they like a ethnically ambiguous or black Jesus is prominent in my family now. So religion, people change. And so a lot of religious people join with atheists saying we don't want the government-sponsored religion and we don't want any state-sanctioned religion in public places because I might get I might get a good word. And most of these people who I am spiritual, I'm not religious, at one time they were religious. Many of them have been baptized, dipped in the blood, blessed and highly favored. And so they understand, well, what if I become spiritual? And everybody understands how stupid it would be to walk into a school that had a crescent star for Islam, the crescent moon for Islam, the Hindu wheel, the damn crucifix, and you got to say the Orthodox prayer against the wall, leaning against the wall, and then you go to the next class and you got to get down on your knees and start pleasing Jesus so his light can come all over your face. Then you go to the next room and you got to bump your head on the floor to Allah, and you go to the next room and you got to call and pray or meditate to Shiva. And in the next room, you gotta burn a candle on the ancestral shrine. And every week, new students brings in an ancestor to worship. You know how stupid it would be. It's impossible to honor all religions because even religions within the same. You get 10 Christians in a room and they can't agree on Christianity. So imagine you get a Christian, a Muslim. So intelligent religious people agree with atheists. Keep religion out of the state. No true atheist is going to run in a tabernacle or a mosque and say, stop what you're doing because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you used to. We don't do that. We say you're free to exercise and fully live out whatever delusions you have about the supernatural world and the afterlife, as long as it doesn't unjustly impose on the rights of anyone else. So you're wrong to say there is no atheist belief. Atheism is not a belief. It is a rejection of belief. An atheist person would be the easiest person to convert to your religion. All you got to do, since your God is omnipresent, he's everywhere, omnipotent. He has all power, right? And he's omnibenevolent. He's all good. So he's a good, all-powerful guy that's everywhere. So how blood clot could it be to say, demonstrate? But what y'all like to say is, the Lord is evident to me in my heart. Then keep him to you in your heart. Because if something is real to you in your heart, then why you got to take it anywhere else? So now let's talk more specifically, with the limited time we have, about African spirituality and why African spirituality is legitimately different than other forms of religiosity and spirituality. There are some overlaps. And my ultimate conclusion about African spirituality, so I can just get this out there, is it is just as irrational and unreal as all other forms of religiosity and spirit. No, we do have ancestors in the secular sense, that we have people who came before us, who charted a path for us into the future. The people who birthed us, who were the progenitors or the constructors and preservers of our culture, the people who defined, who constructed the agenda and advanced the interests of our people, like Dr. John Henry Clark is my ancestor. Dale Jones was a mentor of mine and an ancestor. Sonics Bowie, my great grandfather, is now an ancestor. But in no way do any of these men exist in a special realm somewhere where their consciousness, their minds, or their ghostly forms exist in somewhere looking down on me and will in some way intervene in my life by giving me certain hidden opportunities or working magic on my behalf or harming those who come against me. That is not real. I cannot evoke them. The way my ancestors aid me is they wrote books, they gave lectures on videos. I have memories in my brain of my great grandfather teaching me everything about hygiene, about the proper conduct, becoming of a young man, and how to prime a lawnmower engine. These memories that I take with me now that my sons, I don't, well, there's no spark, but we don't have, I teach my sons how to work tools and equipment like my great grandfather taught me, like Grandpa Bowie taught me. But now we have a battery operated electric lawnmower. So, you know, some of that wisdom is obsolete. Some of those techniques are obsolete, but the idea that, hey, you got to learn how to work with tools, how to tend to your property. And, you know, as a member of the community, you want to keep your home looking nice, not just for yourself, but, you know, to show respect for the rest of the community. Shovel your walk, paint your fence, you know, keep your music down, be respectful of those around you, whether they asked you to be or not. And it don't matter how they act, you don't allow how other people act to affect how you gonna deal with yourself and other people. Grandpa Bowie wisdom. And that wisdom, it didn't come to me from outer space. It didn't come to me from some unknown dimension or realm. It came from me from the memories that I have from sitting across. So I do have ancestors, and my ancestors influence and impact me to this very day. I go and read their writings. I sit and reflect on the experiences that I have. I can pull up a lecture, put in a cassette or a CD and listen to their words. I can go to our photo box and look at images of my great grandfather or take his old driver's license that he has and sit and look at it and interact. But none of that is magical. None of that is supernatural. It is physiological. It is material. It is confirmable, measurable. So, but Africans, we do have ancestors, but there is the supernatural element. So I want to talk about the specific characteristics, I'm damn out of time, of African spirituality. Why African spiritual systems, number one, tend to be polytheistic. There's more than one God because it is not restrictive, it is not hierarchical. There are female deities. There's a prominence in female deities, and I know y'all not gonna like this. Many of the female deities are transgender or hermaphroditic. Like Obatala, the father of the Orisha, is also the mother of Orisha. And depending on under what rituals you are evoking Obatala, Obatala can appear as a man or a woman and can be identified as a man and a woman. I mean, Obatala's pronoun is she, her, him, he, they, them. And I know Black folks don't want to hear this because y'all follow people like Mugabe, or you believe that the Prince of what the Prince of Pan-Africanism has been telling you. So female deities, multiple deities, reverence of non-human divinity. Whereas in the Western Islam, Christianity, Judaism, God is only manifest through man. And then it trickles down to woman. Man is the highest manifestation of God's creation. Woman is a distant second, and children are even less than that. You can kill them with impunity in Christian Judaism and Islam. But in African spirituality, animals and trees and have certain innate power. Like in the Christian religion, you can have a sword or ark or something that is blessed, but it has to be through humans and for humans' use that that thing is blessed. So you bless the Ark of the Covenant or some other artifact to empower humanity. Whereas in African spirituality, everything wasn't human centric. A tree or a space of land or an object or an animal, one particular animal or an entire species of animal can have divine elements or divine qualities that aren't embedded in human. But we're going to take this up next week because I do want to talk about, and then there's the newer like Rastafarianism, which I classify as an African religion, Selassie being God manifested in the flesh, the Lion of Judah. And so I want to go deeper into these elements of African spirituality and how there are some good elements to it and some negative elements to it. And how African spirituality sometimes can aid us potentially and can harm us potentially. And what do I think we should do as an atheist with our long history? Because I by no means thinks that we should abandon the Matu Nater. We should abandon our shrines, abandon the acknowledgement and reverence and even worship of our ancestors. But we can't do it in the traditional way. We have to radicalize and revolutionize spirituality. So I'm not saying for those who want or need or desire a spiritual life. I think there's a way to do it because a lot of the spirituality is very reactionary. It's regressive. And can we take African spiritual concepts and even understand how did it even come to be? When did the first African ever pick up a rock and put it on the top of another rock and bow down and says, I give energy and receive energy? Or this rock represents certain principles and values that I will embody in myself and use this particular stone or this particular carving to evoke and to center myself. Where did it all come? So we got a lot more to talk about. But I just wanted to explain what spirituality really was, because a lot of spiritual people can't even, y'all heard that? A lot of spiritual people can't even define what spirit is. They'll tell you all kind of stuff, but it is what it is, and you don't get to have your own personal definition in it. Anyway, BroDiallo Show, Q4 Radio. I'll see y'all next Monday morning. Please kick in where you can. Hook a brother up with support. You can become a Patreon supporter. What else? CashApp. It helps to support the broadcast for rational, So I don't get support. I ain't about to get no tithings, So I do depend on my listeners to help promote, spread the word, and to give the necessary financial support, or BroDiallo would not be here. I'm here because I think that the BroDiallo broadcast is a vital service to the Black community and the Pan-African struggle as a whole. And this is not a vanity project, so I appreciate when other folks appreciate my efforts here through sharing, subscribing, and making contributions when they can. Anyway, BroDiallo Show, Q4 Radio, and I'll see y'all next Monday. We're going to have a Q&A Wednesday, and the book review for Black on Black Violence will be this Friday, and Who Stole the Soul next Friday. Sorry about the delay in the book reviews and posting the book reviews on YouTube, but like I said, my son who edits the videos, does all that stuff, the magical widgetry of computers, his computer crashed and he lost all his software, all of our files, everything. So he had to get another computer, and then he had to get the software update. So it was a mess. But now we back on track. So Friday book review, and you can go see the past book reviews, YouTube at Diallo Kenyatta across social media. Anyway, as I was saying, I'll see y'all next Monday here on the BroDiallo broadcast. Peace.